All right, so the plan today is we're going to learn some CSS animation, some really cool stuff we can do, and I'm going to create a menu here, style it up like a vertical or like a horizontal menu, and then we're going to put some effects on it. So let's start off. This was also your 5-minute website to make 4 links. Href, and I'm just going to send them to Google, and just call it link 1. Close the anchor tag, close the list item, duplicate the line, 2, 3, 34, whatever, and 4. And close out the UL, and we're good. Okay? All right, so let's just style this up. And what is the first thing we always do if we're making a horizontal menu with list items? What do? Display inline block. What gets display inline block? The LI, and what else? Yep, the anchor tag, very good. Display inline block. Okay, so let's just make sure that worked all right. And there we go, nice inline there, okay? All right, so I'm gonna put a little bit of styling on it. I'm gonna style up the background with my new favorite colors. Background color is lavender, and we give a little bit of padding, like, oh, I don't know, 10 and 20, something like that. Okay, and then I'm going to style up the the anchor tags. Text decoration, none. Everything I'm doing right now you guys should be pretty comfortable with. That's why I'm not really explaining much. I'm just kind of going through it. And then font size, like 35 pixels. Color, white. Oh, yay. Sorry about that. Should still be on the recording though. That was weird. Color's white, and then background color, it's my other new favorite color, is Orchid. And let me see what that looks like. Ooh, it's humongous. All right. Oh, font family. Family. Tahoma. And some padding, like 10 and 20. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to bump this margin up to 15 here. And I'm also going to align my anchors to the right. So how would I do that inside the UL here? Text align. Floating would also work if they were, that would work, but we want to have a little bit more control over it. So we're going to do a text align, right, like that. That looks pretty good, okay? Now, what we've done in the past is we put little hover effects, right? So I'm going to put a quick little hover effect like this, and we said, transform, rotate, like, 8 degrees or something. And then we put a little transition on it so that it's a nice little pace when it rotates. So transition, 500 milliseconds, something like that. And we get this nice little effect here. No, because this means you always put it in the base one, meaning whenever you change it from the base to something else, it will transition. Yeah. All right. So that's we've done this, right? And that looks like animation, right? But it's not. It's actually transition. We're just transitioning a property from, its rotate property or whatever, from one position to another. We're going to look at some animation that can run all the time, or when you refresh the page, it just loads up this animation. And so there's just basically 3 simple steps that you take. Okay, step 1 is you create the animation rules. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is you name the animation rules. And step 3 the element that you want to animate calls the animation rules by name. Okay, that's it. Now, what do all these things mean? We're going to look at that in a piece at a time. But that's the basic idea, right? So here's what I want to do. Here's the effect I want to create. My menu right now is on the right-hand side. I want it to not be there when I load the page, and I want it to slide in from the left, right? It's just going to start somewhere off the screen and slide in. As soon as I refresh the page, it'll just magically slide in, okay? So first thing I want to do is, in my CSS here, I'm going to set it to position relative because I'm going to be manipulating the top and the left properties, all right? And the top and the left properties cannot be manipulated if you don't have position something other than static, which is the default. So we're going to go with position relative here. And my animation is going to modify that left property and have it incrementally increase until it goes from off the screen to where it's at now. Where it's at now is 0, right? It's 0 pixels away from where it's supposed to be. That means it's right where it's supposed to be. And so in other words, if I were to say left is like, 50 pixels or 50 pixels, it would be scooted over 50 pixels from where it's supposed to be, right? But 0 is where it belongs. All right, so we're going to leave it there. Now I'm going to create some animation rules. That was step 1, right? Step 1 here is create the animation rules, okay? It's very easy to do this. Who in here is using something other than Chrome for their browser? What are you using, Safari? Okay, you should be okay. Anybody else? Okay. The support on this is pretty good now. It didn't used to be, but actually it's pretty solid. Most browsers, it's fine. But we've talked about this in the past, how when browsers aren't ready to fully support something, they have their own little extension, right? You have like MOZ dash and then whatever the property name is. For Mozilla, that would be for them. So we're going to assume that all browsers are supporting it, and we're going to go with the all supported version, which is at Keyframes. Okay? At Keyframes, let me get a little space here.
What is that, Keyframes?
What's that?
What is that, Keyframes?
What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're going to define that right now as the code. That's okay. So keyframes is anytime you're, if you've ever done any kind of animation like in Flash or something like that, a keyframe is, let's say you have a timeline that's a minute long, okay, and you have some sort of animation that's going to be on a minute long. You make a keyframe that says this is what it looks like at 30 seconds. It's like a snapshot of what it will look like at 30 seconds. And here's a snapshot of what it will look like at 45 seconds. And usually the software automatically will just go, oh, here's what you want at 30 seconds, here's what you want at 45. So I'll just do some sort of magical transition to make it more from what you want at 35 to what you want at 45. So we're going to define those positions, those keyframes of what we want at any given particular time. So we're going to start with the super easy one. Okay, so keyframes, and then we give it a name, and so I'm going to call it animate menu. You can call it whatever you want. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is declare 2 keyframes. I'm going to declare the starting position and the ending position. And CSS will do all the rest of the work for me. Okay, so my starting position, we actually do from and to. And inside of the from, we put the code that's where it's gonna start, and inside of the to, we put the code where it's gonna end, okay? So in other words, here's what I want. I want to start my left position at negative 2,500 pixels. That's gonna push it all the way to the left, right? And then I want the final position to be left 0, which is where it is, right? So before I show you how to apply that, does conceptually that make sense what I'm saying there? I'm saying our starting position is going to be left negative 2,500, and our ending position is going to be 0. Well, our ending position of what? Our starting position of what? Whatever we decide to apply this animation to. Remember, step 1, create the animation rules. We've done it, the from and the to. Step 2 is name it. We did. We named it animate menu. Step 3, the element that you want to animate calls the rules. So what element do I want to animate? I want to animate all my anchor tags. So inside of my anchor tag, I call this piece right here. For those of you who have a programming background, this is kind of like calling a function, right? So in here, inside of the anchor tag, I say animation, and then I call animate menu, all right? And I want it to take 1 second to occur, 1 second, like that. So what's going to happen when I refresh this, it's going to start off right here inside here. It styles everything up, and then says, oh, we have an animation. All right, let's go look at the animation rules. It comes down, looks at the animation rules, and says, oh, you want to start 25 pixels, 2,500 pixels to the left. Okay, and then you want to eventually go to, from there to 0 pixels from the left. And you want to take 1 second to do that. So here's what that looks like. Ready? Okay? That's the basic idea. All right, so if I refresh it again, it starts off on the left, makes its way in. Okay, now we're going to tweak the settings here and play around with that, but I want to make sure that the basic idea makes sense. Okay, now let me quickly show you. I'm going to add a div right here, just a blank div. And I'm going to quickly style up so we can see it. I'll just put it at the top here. Oops. Div, and it's width 100 pixels and height 100 pixels. Background color is orange, and its margin is 20 pixels. Auto, right there. Okay. Now, remember, this is just, again, for those who have a programming background, think of this as a function. Okay. If you don't have a programming background, don't worry about it. But if you do, think of it as a function or a method, right? Okay. What I'm doing here inside of the A, the ULLIA, I'm calling the function. Okay. I'm calling this animation. Well, I can call that from anywhere. I can call it from the div. So if I call it from the div, it's going to also animate my div. Animation is the property, and then I say animate menu, because that's what I named that particular animation, and I want that to take 1 second. Okay, and I'm going to need to set its property to its position to relative as well. And now that also, the animation applies to that. So this is, again, if you're not familiar with functions, the basic idea is it's just reusable code, right? This code right here, I write it once, and I can use it anywhere I want. Yes, sir?
What's the point of the top left inside the ULI?
That was just me showing you
That's
that.
what it's doing in
that
the back end.
yeah, so what I was just showing you that 0 is the default, so that line is not there. It's not necessary yet. I can take that out. Right? All right. So again, we can just apply this animation to anything we want. Now, first of all, less is more, right? Don't go overboard. Second of all, that specific animation was for animating the menu, and so maybe we want a different animation for this little square here. But I could see a scenario where we wouldn't want to necessarily animate the menu, but we maybe want to have that little box fly in. Maybe that's our logo or something like that, right? So we refresh the page, and the box comes flying in just to keep people's attention. Maybe. It's up to you how you want to use this stuff. But now, if I put that back, my little transition effects still work, right? It doesn't change anything. I had a student last class asked if you can click them while they're moving. The answer is yes if you can catch them, right? So I'm going to try to, oh, that was too fast. Yeah, you can't catch them. Yeah, I got one. Didn't quite get it. Anyway, so, but yeah, they are still clickable, right? Okay. Okay, so let's play around with some of these properties. Let's say maybe I want to do it 3 seconds, okay? Oh, I'm going to get rid of that div now, by the way. Just want to show you that you can apply it to anything. Okay? So now that's 3 seconds. Now with the 3 seconds, you can really see, watch how it starts off fast and then slows down. Watch it. Do you see that? That idea of going fast and slowing down is called easing, okay, E-A-S-E. And you can ease in, or you can ease out, or you can do both. So let me show you where that goes. I'm going to leave that at 3 seconds for the time being. The default is ease out, okay? We're going to change it to ease in, like this, okay? Ease in. So now what's going to happen is it's going to start slow and end fast, okay? See how it's sped up, right? That's easing in, okay? Because it eases its way into the animation, and then easing out is when it eases its way out of the animation. So it starts fast and eases out. You can do ease in, out, like that. And what that means is it's going to start slow and end slow. It speeds up in the middle, which may be a little hard to see because it's off the screen when it starts, and it's off the screen by 2,500 pixels somewhere. And so that's pretty far off the screen. So, you know, here's my screen, and way off to the left, it's starting its animation. We can't quite see how slow it is, okay? But let's go ahead and run it. And it's easing in, speeding up, and easing out, right? That's what happened there, okay? You can also do linear. And that, there's no easing, it's just a constant speed, okay? Now 3 seconds is clearly too long. I'm just doing it to show you the effect. Okay, now, what's cool about this, let's go back to 1 second here. Okay, that's pretty decent. This position down here, our animation rules, we don't have to go from and to. We can actually declare percentages. I can say 0%, 100%, okay? So in other words, when you're at the 0% of the animation happening, you're at 2,500 pixels to the left. When you're at 100%, you're at 0. I can put any percentage in between that I want. So I'm going to do this little effect. I'm going to say 10%, and I'm going to put top is equal to -5 pixels, and then 20% is going to be top positive 5 pixels. And I'm going to keep doing a bunch of those, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Okay, so 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and every other one's going to be negative. Okay, and then the final one is going to end up where it's supposed to be, top 0. Okay, so what do you suppose that's going to do? It's going to kind of be sort of bouncing up and down as it moves across the screen, right? Yeah, kind of like a wave. Right? Let's slow that down a little bit. Okay, see how it's kind of bouncing as it goes along? That's kind of a cool effect, right? And then let's do it with easing. We'll just leave the default there. So it speeds up and then it slows down at the very end there, right? Okay. So again, I can make whatever rules I want in here. By the way, I can transition the color too, okay? So right now the color is, where is the background color is Orchid. Well, I can start the background color at, what's a color that's not even close to purple? Let's try black, see what that looks like. Okay, and then when we get to the end, background, color, Orchid. See how it's fading in there, right? So let me, just for the sake of clarity, I'm going to clear out some of this stuff here. So I'm not going to animate the menu flying in, it's just going to start where it's at. But when I refresh the page, you get that effect, right? Okay. So that's what's happening, but it was happening while it was moving, right? So I'm going to put all that stuff back in and delete the color change. Okay. So now we're back to this effect. Okay. How are we feeling so far? Pretty straightforward. Okay. There's lots of cool things you can do with this. Now, I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not an expert at this stuff, at animation. In fact, I've used it, and I'll show you an actual site where I've used it. But This is the first semester I've actually added this to the curriculum. Previous semesters, we didn't cover animation. This whole module here called Advanced CSS is new for this semester, okay? Now, the Photoshop to code, I did that in previous semesters, but it wasn't in the advanced part. But this whole section here of advanced stuff is all new to this semester. And so we spent a lot of time on advanced selectors that other classes have not gotten, animation today, and on Tuesday we'll be looking at the grid. These are all things that we've never covered in this class before. So it's been fun for me to get back and play around with this stuff again. But just keep in mind, there are people who are way better at this kind of animation. They've got a better eye for what's a good looking effect and what's a stupid effect. And I think this is an okay effect, but there are other people that'll just know the right timing to make it look perfectly the way they want it to look, okay? So I'm gonna show you an effect that's pretty common, and I'm gonna write the definition, and I wanna see if you guys can figure out what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna leave this up and down business here, and then at like 94%, I'm going to say left is actually 12 pixels. So that's pushing it over to the, further over than the 0 position, right? Okay. Semicolon. And then at like 96%, I'm going to say left is negative 12 pixels. And then at 98%, I'm going to say left is like, we'll go like 4 or 5 pixels, okay? Does anybody have a sense of what that's going to do? Yeah. It's going to, yeah, kind of like it's bouncing against the wall when it slides in, right? So I want it to be linear. Yeah, so let's put this as linear and see how it looks. That one actually was pretty good. Because I played around with it a few times to try to get it to work. But it hits the wall, and it has a little bouncing effect. That's kind of a cool effect, and that's a relatively common effect that I've seen out there. And so I just experimented with these different numbers to try to take a guess of how I might pull that off, okay? All right, any questions about that? Yeah?
Could you have the boxes stay to the right and then have the words go over it?
Sure, yeah. So the question was, can I leave the boxes there but have the words fly in? And let me think about that for just a minute, how I would do that.
Would you just target the anchors?
Well, that is what I'm targeting right now. So what we'd have to do is we would have to put all the decoration on the LI and then target the text. So in other words, we would do this, right? This is probably enough right here. So we'd do that. Okay, so now that purple is on the LI, not the anchor tag. And then we can do, in fact, I can get rid of this. And I'll get rid of that transition there. And that doesn't matter because that's LI stuff. We can leave that font there. Color white won't affect that. Background color is good. This stuff doesn't matter. Okay, so something like this. And I'm winging it right here, folks, but let's just try it. So now we would target the anchor, and we would say position relative, and let's put that animation in there. Just see what that does. There you go. Yep, something like that, okay? That's actually kind of a cool effect. And I would add some more styling to those words too. What's nice about that idea though is the menu's already there, so they know something that's probably the menu rather than starting with an empty screen. So that's a nice effect. All right, so let's put a little bit of animation on that, or style on that. We'll just go back to color white and font family Tahoma, and that should look pretty cool. And text decoration none. Now check this out. Text decoration none, and then notice how that white is hard to see on that lavender background. So what if we made it black, like we were talking about earlier? The color is black, and it eventually becomes white. So you can see it fading as it goes in, right? Pretty cool. Nice idea, I like that. Other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns, ideas?
So could you make the whole website slide in if you did it to the body tag?
Huh. Let's try it. I don't know. Let's try it. So let's put a border on it or something so we can see it. I'm not sure if you can do that. I think you can. Border 5 pixels, solid black. That's the whole site right there at this point. So let's put some Bacon Ipsum text in here. All right. And we'll just dump it right here. Okay, turn on my word wrap again. All right, so now the site looks like this. Let's give that some heft here. Hang on a second. Just want to get it styled up a little bit so we can see the whole page. And I'm going to move these paragraphs down underneath all that stuff, down here. And let's give them a little bit of style real quick, and then we'll try it out. Okay, so paragraphs. We'll give it some margin of 20 pixels, some padding, 20 pixels, font size, 30 pixels, and font family, Trebuchet MS. There we go. So now we have decent looking amount of content here. So now I'm going to take that animation off of the anchors just for a moment, and we're going to put that on the body.
Position relative.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't see. This is the part that's I don't know for sure. Dude, nice. Very cool. Yeah, very cool. What's nice about that is if you now let's speed that up a little bit. So and let's get rid of the bounce for a minute. So get rid of the bounce. I want to keep this part. Let's get rid of this part here, and get rid of that color stuff, so that it just kind of slides in. And I want it to, I do want it to bounce. So we're going to leave that part, and we're going to make it like a 1 second transition. Now, what's cool about that is if you click on a page in your website, and then the new page loads that way. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so I like that. Glad you, whoever asked it. Who was that? Did you ask it? Oh, yeah. I knew it was somebody over there. Yeah, very cool. Again, less is more, right? Don't overkill. And real quick, I'm going to put, I'm going to say margin 20 pixels auto, and then we're going to make the width like 75%. Yeah, that's sweet. It's a cool effect. Good. Other questions? Yeah.
Is there like a danger to load time?
Yes, there can be. And in fact, we're going to look at a situation where the animation never stops, and that can be kind of dangerous. Something like this it's okay. And by the way, if the browser doesn't support animation, they just get this, right? So it's not that big a deal. But yeah, there can be a potential. These days, with most modern browsers, they're probably on a decent machine, and it's probably okay.
So, like, to avoid load time, like he was saying, is there a way to have the user click something to make the animation start and stop?
With JavaScript, you can do stuff like that, yeah. Yeah, so the question was, can you allow the user to turn on the animation or turn it off? And you can do stuff like that with JavaScript. Okay, so let me show you a real use case of this. You guys have seen this site many times. It's just the most recent site I happen to build. This particular website now, when you hover over this, these little talks come up. And so when you click on this, watch what will happen about in the middle of the screen. See that animation there? I'll do another one here. Okay. So what's happening here, there's two things. One, the opacity is a property that how opaque something is, that's also transitioning with the animation, but it's also sliding in, right? So if we refresh that, it's just kind of sliding in there and it's sort of appearing, okay? So the reason that we use that effect is because there's another site out there that had a similar look to it that he liked, and so we sort of modeled this website after his, right? All right, so that's a real situation I would use it. The rest of these things I'm using transitions, right? That slow fade when I roll over my mouse there or up here, right? That's using transitions, okay? All right, any other questions about this part right here? Okay, I'm going to show you now this other idea that uses infinite animation, basically, okay? Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at, I'm going to delete all this code here, so make sure there's no questions before I do. But delete it and try something different, okay? I'm going to style this up and see if you guys can figure out what it is. I guarantee you mine won't look as nice as the one I'm going to show you afterwards, okay? But I'll style it up, and you see if you can get the vision of what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to kill all this code. Let me scroll through it real quick so that it's recorded just slow enough that you can take a screenshot if you want. Okay, you can pause it and look at it. All right, going. Keep this last piece here. Okay, so now I'm going to change my HTML a little bit. Just going to leave that div there. That's it. Okay, and I'm going to style that div with background color of pink, and opacity is, give it like 0.75, something like that. That's how opaque it is. And I'm going to make the width about 100 pixels and the height about 200 pixels, and border radius 50%. What do you suppose that's going to do? Yeah.
Maybe like 75% visible.
Right, but what's the whole thing going to be? Almost. Not quite a circle. It's going to be an oval, right? Because I have a rectangle shape, right? A width of 100 and a height of 200. So we have this kind of a shape here. Okay, let me put some little margin here. Margin 20 pixels auto. And let's see if that's good enough. Yeah, that's good. And I'm going to put, that's good, believe that. And then position relative. And then I had to write down these couple things I'm going to do in my animation. Because again, this is not stuff that I use a lot, this kind of weird stuff. This is for like advanced people that are really good at this stuff. So, but keyframes, frames, and it's going to be, I'll just call it move stuff. I won't tell you what it's doing. And now here's a nice little touch here. If I have two percentages that have the same properties, I can separate them by commas like this. So I can have, at the 0 and the 100 mark, I can have the following properties we'll look at in a second. And then at 50%, we can have these properties. So it's going to go from 0 to 50 to 100, which will look like it was at 0, right? And then we're going to make it loop infinitely. Okay, so 0 to 100, we're going to do transform. And then we're going to do translate. This is a new property we haven't talked about. Translate. This is actually a function, I should say. Translate y. Now there's translate y, and translate x. Okay? we're translating y, which is what you're thinking, you know, y, x, y on a graph, okay? And then rotate -6 degrees. And then in the 50%, we're going to say transform, translate y at -20 pixels and rotate 8 degrees. Okay, at the moment, that's just our definition. I have to call it from my div here, okay? So I'm going to call animation, and we're calling the move stuff animation. And I want it to be, what did I do? 1 second? 2 seconds. 2 seconds, ease, in, out, and I want it to be infinite, and you can actually use the keyword infinite. Okay?
Will this make like a loading?
Not quite. You're close, yeah. You could do that with this, right? You can totally do that. In fact, remind me, we'll look at some in a minute, okay? So what it's going to do is this kind of like it's floating kind of an effect. So what do you suppose I'm trying to replicate here? Let me try this, give it a better proportion. There we go. Does that remind you of anything?
Bobblehead,
What was that?
a bobblehead.
A bobblehead? How about a balloon? Hovering, right? Now, I could do more style on it to make it look more like a balloon, and in fact, I'm going to show you one. But that's the effect that we're going for here, okay? It's just sort of floating there, and imagine if there was a string on it or something like that, or you had 3 or 4 of them next to each other, right? It looked pretty cool. Okay, so this, what I've just shown you here is like barely scratching the surface of what you can do with this. Take some time to search and Google, and I'm going to show you a couple things to look at here in just a second, okay? But are there any questions so far? All right, so what I'm going to show you, CSS animated balloons. And the first hit here is CodePen, or this one's a video, but CodePen. Are you guys familiar with CodePen? CodePen.io. The guy who created it is also the guy behind CSSTricks.com, which is one of my favorite sites. His name's Chris Coyer. It's him and some other people, I think, but he's kind of the main guy behind it. So we're going to click on this and check this out. This is 100% CSS and HTML. In fact, look at the HTML. This is it right here. This is the style over here. Those look like balloons, right? I was just mimicking the animation, but the style on these, and notice when they hover over each other, you can see through them, right? You can see the other balloon behind them.
How do you get the little stubs on the bottom?
CSS, it's all in here, okay? So what we're going to look at here, so let me show you a couple things about this so you understand what you're looking at here. CodePen is a site that lets you type in HTML over here, CSS here, JavaScript here, and it immediately renders the page. You don't have to refresh or anything. The moment you type it, it starts rendering the page out, okay? Now, there are lots of cool plugins that you can, or cool tools you can use with CSS. One of them is called Less, and we're not going to learn that in this class at all. Maybe some future semester we may dive into that. But this thing called Less lets you actually create variables in your CSS, all right? So notice up here, there's this GPS-berg, and it's this color. That's a variable called burgundy. So anywhere in their code they want to use that burgundy color, they would actually just refer to that variable. So you can look down here, and there's GPS-berg. That's burgundy, okay? Well, you guys don't have Less set up on your computer, so this won't work. It'll work in CodePen because CodePen knows how to compile it. But all you have to do if you wanted to copy this code onto your computer is everywhere it says Berg, just copy this right here and replace this right there where it says Berg, okay? So if you turn off the Less on here, the balloons go away because the variables don't work anymore, okay? All right, so we're going to leave that turned on so we can see it all. Okay, so now here's what's happening. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 balloons. And you'll see down here, he's targeting each one. The nth child 1, the nth child 2, nth child 3, and so forth, okay? All the way at the bottom are the animation definitions. So here's balloon number 1, all right? Now notice here, he doesn't just have at keyframes. He has at dash webkit dash keyframes. And then this one is at dash Mozilla dash keyframes. And this is for Opera and so on. So he has, and this is the standard, the default one. These days, you don't need these anymore, okay? Those are there back before browsers fully supported it. This is an older post, okay? So if I deleted all those, then it should still run, all right? But he did the same thing for the second balloon and the third balloon. So each one has its own little set of properties that are being manipulated. And then up here in the balloons, nth child 1, or in child 6 in this case, again, he's having the same thing, WebKit animation, Moz animation, O animation, right? Really all you need is this one though, okay? These are just for browser support back in the day, all right? This is fun stuff though. There's a lot of cool things here, okay? All right, any questions about the basic idea? So one thing that's cool about this particular site here, CodePen, if you have an account, you can click the fork button right here. And when you click the fork button, it now makes a copy of the code that's yours. This is a code sharing site. It's now your code and you can tweak it however you want and you'll have your own URL for it. So I think I forked this one earlier. So I'm gonna log in real quick. I guess I'm already logged in. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna fork this one again. And now look at the URL. It says codepen.io/stonecoldprofessor. So now I own this code here, and I can do whatever. So I'm going to go in and delete all of these extra ones just for fun to see if it still works, if it still has good browser support. Okay, and all these. Whoops, don't delete that one. So far, so good, right? You see the page flickering because it's refreshing. But I'm deleting all the extra browser extensions ones because theoretically, just the standard animation should work now, okay? Getting rid of all this. And then down here in the actual animation stuff, I'm just gonna kill all that, right? Does everybody understand what I'm doing there? Okay? So these are just the ones for browsers that may not be fully supporting it right now. So all this code is unnecessary at this point. And here, ooh. Balloon number 3, 4. Did I delete too much? No? So there we go. I think we got them all. And 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So that's it. Oh, I see. It's balloon number 1 and 4, right? Balloon number 2 and 5. Okay. So there you go. It's still working just fine without the extra browser extension stuff. That's a lot less code. But notice how clean the HTML is, man. There's nothing in there. Okay, nothing. Now, there's so many things out there that you would be blown away by that can be done just with pure CSS. And I'm going to show you some right now. So, CSS candle. And I think this is the one right here. Yeah, that's 100% pure CSS. There's no images. Look, here's the HTML right here. That's it. This is all CSS. It's animation. Now, this is somebody that clearly knows their way around colors and layers and transparency, and these guys are way smarter than me, right, whoever created this pen. But this is somebody that clearly understands timing and rhythm and colors, but that looks like a picture, like a video. I mean, that looks real. But it's just CSS, okay? So let's take a look at some other ones here. Leave the page. All right, let's do, you were asking about spinners, right? Yeah, spinners. When you search for these, see if you can find a CodePen one, like here's a CodePen one. Those are usually the better ones. So all these are just animated CSS loading things, right? So I can, like, let's click on this one here. And so that's what it'll do while the page is loading. It's all CSS, okay? Now this is actually using SVG, okay? SVG is a way to write code that will create images in your HTML. We're not getting into that in this class, but you can actually write code that will draw shapes and stuff like that. So this one's a little bit more intricate. But there's tons and tons of different things here. Let's take a look at another one real quick. This one's kind of fun, a little frying pan here. Cooking in progress, right? But this is all, again, it's all CSS, man, all CSS. We found one in last class. It was an animated jack-o'-lantern. And I found it was the first code pen one, I think. This one. That's it. Again, look at the HTML. Nothing here. Okay. There's another one I found that was a candle. Let me go back to the candles here. And it was this one. And it was this one. Shoot, that might not be it. The reason I want to show you this next one here is because, yeah, this is the one right here. Now, this isn't as cool as that first one, but look at the HTML. It's one div tag. That's all it is. Right? This H1 here is just the text in the background. That's it. It's one div tag. Everything else is CSS. It's pretty amazing. So there's a ton of stuff here, guys. Tons of stuff. And again, they're using all this WebKit stuff, right? You shouldn't have to do that these days. Here's a property here we haven't talked about, which is skew. Okay? And there's scale. You can change the scale of things. There's all kinds of different stuff here. The jack-o'-lantern, there's a bunch of things going on here. Look at how the mouth opens and closes a little bit. And it looks like it's coming out at you a little bit. Okay? And it glows as it leans back. So many different effects here. And it's not that many lines of code. I mean, it's only 170 lines of code here. And I bet if you took out all of the web browser, you know, the what do you call it? The dash that other browsers support, it'd probably be even less. Okay? Well, no, you still need the keyframes, but you need, it looks like they're actually using, they're not using the other browsers, so this one we wouldn't be able to change much. But a lot of cool things here, guys. Tons and tons of cool things. All right, any questions? So take some time to study these. Go to these code pens, download them, play around with them, fork them. And then the other thing I want to show you real quick is CSS animation and W3 schools. Yes. Okay, watch this little guy here. It's a little animation they made, right, where it kind of rolls in or whatever. Okay. This tells you right here the browser support. Keyframes, that keyword that's in our code over here, this keyframes code right here, it's supported by basically every browser now. Any modern browser supports it. The keyword animation right here, supported by any modern browser. So that's why you don't need those extra browser extensions. Okay, so this tells you the rules of the keyframe, tells you how to do it, and again, it shows this little example here. Notice this, however. Right here it says animation-name, and then it's example, which is the name of the animation right here. And then it has animation-duration, 4 seconds. Well, remember, when we have a property dash something, that the property by itself probably exists. Remember border dash left, border dash right, and they can just use border. Same kind of thing here. So you can just use animation, you can dump all those properties in there into it, like that. Or you can use animation-duration, animation-name, and so forth. I prefer just doing this because it's less stuff to worry about, right? All right, one other thing I'm going to show you. If you can actually add, what do we have here? This is the balloon thing, right? This first number here, 2 seconds, that's how long the animation takes. You can also delay how long it takes before it starts. And that would be another time right after it. So I can say, let's wait for 10 seconds before it starts. So now if I refresh that balloon page, nothing happens, and then we wait 10 seconds, maybe 10 was too long. After 10 seconds, theoretically, but it feels like it's been 10 seconds already. There we go, it starts to move after 10 seconds, okay? So you can put a delay in there. Yes, sir?
Does it accept milliseconds?
Yes, you can use milliseconds, you can do, I could do like 1.5 seconds like that. I could do 500 milliseconds, which won't be much of a delay, but yeah, you can do milliseconds and seconds, yeah.
Can you make it delay until like a hover?
Delay until a hover. No, but let's try something, I have an idea. What if I put this animation just on the div hover property? So nothing's happening, I hover, and while I'm hovering it moves, but when I move out it stops. That's not quite the effect you're going for, I'm assuming, but that's close. So I'm not sure if what you're saying without JavaScript is possible. Again, this is where my lack of experience with the animation shows. I've used it a little bit, and I understand how it works, but to be able to figure out all the little nuances, it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of fun stuff to think about. All right, other questions? Now, I could, with JavaScript, very easily, the moment I hover on this, I can basically inject this CSS into the div, right? And then it would continue forever at that point. You could do that. We'll learn how to do that kind of stuff later. Other questions? All right, we're basically done. We're going to cut out a little bit early, I guess, but I wanted to make sure let's just do a quick recap here, okay? Thing number one, we create the animation rules. And these rules can be anything. Any property that exists in CSS, and there are so many we haven't even talked about, right? But any property in CSS, you can put an animation on it. So we create the rules inside of the keyframes thing here, okay? We give it a name the animation rules, and that's what we did here. This is naming it, this is creating the rules. And then anything that we want to implement that animation, we just put this line of code, the animation property, inside of the property that's going to implement it. That's step 3 right there. And that's it, okay? Any other questions?